was doing a video and Facebook started harassing me, so I had to log off, complaining about my music in the background. Which the music, it's a mix. You know, when you take a song and you mix it and you edit the song, it becomes yours. It's as long as it's like 30% of the music is, and this music is open source. The music I was listening to, it's not. It doesn't even, you know, it's music that you can use. I'm so sick of Facebook, honest to God. I'll be so happy when Paula comes back. I think they're targeting me now. I went on their Facebook page, main page, and I uploaded this video that has to do with Facebook violating people's rights, people's, you know, freedom of speech and all that. And I went and shared it on their page like 10 times. Which I don't care. I really want them to kick me out. I don't have to come here anymore. Just beard. Everybody's starting to hate Facebook. Everybody. I mean, I think these people are like really stupid. And it's going to get to the point people are going to, you know, people in Congress, politicians are going to start hating them. They're already upset because some politicians are angry because they shut down Parler, and some of these politicians had like 1 million people that followed them on Parler, and now this politician was complaining, oh no, I don't have any way to, you know, talk with, because I wanted to go to a place where I can speak freely and Facebook doesn't like that. So they don't like you using their platform and have your freedom of speech. And then when you create another page like Parler, that people can, you know, have the freedom of speech to say what they want to say, they shut them down. It's, I don't know, guys. So like this, I want this real. It's, you know, usually give this a little couple of layers. Let me put some. Put some of this below, like in the hair, like in the gray part. Okay, let me, okay, that area over here. You know, the other day I had the most stupidest thought in my... I thought this stupid thing, I don't know why. I went outside and it was so cold, very cold. And my mother died, I think it's been 2 years now. And I just thought for a minute, I said, I wonder if my mother's cold in that coffin right now. And I don't know why I thought that, but I was like, I wonder, is it cold being 6 feet underground in a coffin? Is it cold being in there? I mean, I know you're dead, you don't feel anything, but just couldn't. I'm walking and I'm thinking this. I don't know why, but that weird. Okay. And then over here, he's got the collar that has, let me use the umber to kind of separate it. This paper's a little too wet now. I went the other day to the Metropolitan. I was in front of the Metropolitan, and I was doing watercolor outside, and I took my Bluetooth little speaker, and I was playing that, and just people started to stop looking at me and staring at me. I'm gonna make business cards. People were asking for my business card, and I didn't have any to give. Let's see the brush. The smaller one. This one, yeah. Let me use the hair blow to dry this. Watercolor always dries lighter. Excuse me. Getting very used to my watercolors. Developing a style of flair. I have to do it for a while now. This is coming up this way. And then the shirt's this way. And then here's a beard. I guess I could do that. Because you see through the hairs, you see a little flesh right through here. So I don't know how right. Let me oops. Oopsie daisy. This is the blow I was using before. I was gonna lay down and stop painting for the day. Decided to come back out. Then these cheeks, that cheek, that nose has a little bit of that. Let me use this red. Let me get some heavier paint here. It's a little bit too red. I need a little bit of green. Right. And then I'll bring it up. Then I'll grab this and try it. He's got a big nose. There's a little bit that goes this way. And then let me grab a little bit of this blue. I still see a little bit of blue. I see a little bit of that blue showing through. Right here. Slightly. And blue trickles down a little bit here. Behind that ear, there's a bit of shadow. Then let me get it. Let's get this like this. Fill that in. Like that. Grab the bottom this way. And then over here, bring it up. This paper, I'm okay with it. It's hot press, which I usually prefer cold press, but and it's inexpensive, this pad. Okay. Let's get this over here for now. I find that real strange that Nancy Pelosi asks Pence to use the 25th to get Donald Trump out. And then the whole situation in the House, the way he was, she was kind of like, she wouldn't even look at him, and she would just point, like, do this and do that, and I think he's been compromised. And if she would ask him that, I would think that it would be because, oh, I can't, what, he was doing everything I told him to do. I know if I tell him to use do the 25th, he'll do it. Which he didn't. getting a lot of backlash from what he did. Okay, this says, let's see what let me see. This translator. The eyes, I gotta, leave that like that for now. Let me take it to the eyes. Let's see if I can. Just think about it, he's Republican. A lot of people that voted for Trump are conservative. And now what he did, people are really unhappy with him. I don't think he has a career any longer in politics. No one is going to vote for that guy. So what is he to do? What is he to do? Go join the liberals? Okay, got this. And then this part goes that way. And there's a little cool area with blue. It's not blue, but I can use blue. Then over here the brown. I'll use that there. And then make this a little dirtier. It's a little too dirty. Just for here. Okay. And then then
Chapter 1 of Book 1 of Rhetoric. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jeffrey Edwards. Rhetoric by Aristotle. Translated by Thomas Taylor. Chapter 1 of Book both are conversant with
Come
such
this way.
particulars
And
as,
then we'll
being
bring this
common,
down
may
that way.
after a manner be known by all men,
And bring it
and
up.
pertain to no definite science.
Drag it up.
Hence, all men, in a certain respect, participate of both these. For all men,
So
to a certain
for that.
extent, endeavor to examine and sustain an argument, to defend and accuse. With respect to the multitude, therefore, some of them do these things casually, but others through custom from habit.
Wait a minute, that's not what I
Because,
wanted. I
however,
wanted
this
to
is
listen to
possible in both
interview.
ways, it is
Is it
evident that
here?
these particulars may
Thoughts
also be
of
reduced
art.
to a certain method. For
Let me see.
Soul, though it expend all its might, cannot prevent these limbs from trembling.
These are the
The same
thoughts
thing
on
occurs in
art
double
and
extent,
life
or
with
when
Da
limbs
Vinci.
are partially truncated, as in the case of tails of lizards. I back into an arch and rested my
And nature amazed him most. He observed of the eye how in it form and color and the entire universe it reflected were
I'll
reduced to
put
a
this
single
blue
point.
here.
Wonderful law of nature, which forced all effects to participate with their cause in the mind of man. These are the true
The
miracles.
best way, I think, to
Elsewhere
learn
he
a
wrote again,
watercolor is
nature is
working with
full of infinite reasons which have
one
not
hue
yet passed
at a
into
time
experience.
and introduce one
He
color
conceived it to be the painter's duty
one
not
by
only
one.
to comment on natural phenomena as restrained by law, but to merge his very mind into that of nature by interpreting its relation with art.
It's like I
Resting
noticed that
securely on the
in
reality of
art, when I
experienced
started
truth,
art many
he
years
felt the
ago,
deeper
and I went
presence
to
of
art
the
to the
unreal
art
on
student
every
and they have
side.
all these different
In the
classes,
same way that he
oil
visualized the inner
painting,
workings of the
drawing,
mind,
and
his
you're
keen
supposed to take
imagination
all these
aided him
different
to make
classes.
outward trifles serve his desire to
But
find
I realized that
mysteriously
drawing you don't
everything.
have to take, because drawing you learn
Oftentimes, when
drawing while
gazing
you
on
learn how
some
to paint.
ancient, time-stained wall, he describes how he would trace their own landscapes with mountains, rivers, and valleys. The whole world
So
was
that
full
was
of
a
a
waste of
mystery to
money.
him, which his work reflected. The smile of consciousness, pregnant of that which is beyond,
Synthetic.
illumines the expression of Mona Lisa. So, too, in the strange glance of Anne, of John the Baptist, and of the Virgin of the Rocks,
And then just go.
one realizes that their thoughts
So,
dwell in
to
another
show that
world.
off, I'll add a little bit of dark here.
Leonardo had found a refuge in art from the pettiness of material environment. Like his own creations, he too had learned the secret of the inner life. The painter, he wrote, could create a world of his own and take refuge in this new realm. But it must not be one of shadows only. The very mystery he felt so keenly had yet to rest on a real foundation. To treat it otherwise would be to plunge into mere
A little bit of that red. That red is so
Although
pyro.
attempting to bridge the gulf which separated
But then
the
that
real from the
red
unreal,
underneath
he
the neck is
refused to
usually
think
more
that
yellow.
supernaturally. That mystery which lesser minds found in the occult,
Yellow.
he saw in nature all about
Little
him.
hint of red.
He denied the existence of spirits, just as he urged the foolishness of the will-o'-the-wisps of former ages, alchemy and the black art. In one sentence he destroyed the pretensions of palmistry. You will see, he wrote, great armies slaughtered in an hour's time, where in each individual the signs of the hands are different. His art took, thus, its guidance in realism,
Can
its
use a
purpose
little
in
bit of this. I don't know if
spirituality.
this is burnt umber.
The search for truth and the
Looks
desire
like burnt
for
umber.
beauty were the twin ideals he strove
What
to
do we have
attain.
here?
The keenness of this pursuit saved him from the blemish of egoism,
That's
which
burnt
aloofness
umber.
from his surroundings would otherwise have forced upon him. For his
This is
character
raw.
presented the anomaly, peculiar to the Renaissance, of a lofty
That
idealism
looks
coupled
like
in action
umber.
with irresponsibility of duty.
Raw or
He
burnt?
stood on a higher plane,
Anyway.
his attitude toward life recognizing no claims on the part of his fellow
This is
men.
what I need right here.
In his desire to surpass himself, fostered by this isolation of spirit, and spurred on by the eager wish to attain universal knowledge, he has been compared to Faust. But the likeness is only half correct.
This is coming
He was
this
not
way.
blind to the limitation which encompassed him, his very genius making him realize their bounds. Of the ancients, he said that in attempting to define the nature of the soul, they sought the impossible. He wrote elsewhere, "It is the infinite alone that cannot be attained, for if it could, it would be finite." In Leonardo's personality was reflected both the strength and weakness of Renaissance Italy. So to know him, it is necessary to understand the Italy of that age. Its brilliancy, its universality, its desire for beauty are but one side of the medal. On its reverse, Italy lacked the solid vigor of a national purpose. The discord of political disunion, reacting on art, laid bare great weakness in the want of any constructive direction toward which the strength of the Renaissance could aim. The energy was there, whether finding an outlet in statecraft or in discovery, in art or in letters.
Be careful with this.
But it labored for no common
Yeah,
end.
more water
There was
here.
internal unity of force and method, but external divergence of purpose.
Oh, that's fine.
The
Like that.
tyranny of petty despots
I don't
could
want
provide
it
no
again.
adequate ideal
Let
toward
me-
which to aim.
And this.
No ruler and no city save Venice could
like
long
this,
symbolize the
right.
nation's patriotism. Venetian painters
Like
alone
this.
glorified the state in their work, and thus felt the living force of a national ambition which raised them above themselves. But elsewhere there was little to inspire that
Little bit of
devotion for a
darkness
common
over
country
here.
necessary as the background to sustain the greatest work. Hence,
This over
Italian
here.
art, so living within certain limits, remained stunted beyond these. The conviction that art existed in order to express ideal beauty, that its main purpose was to please the eye and the senses in spite of the result attained, proved inadequate
Okay.
compensation for all that had been
And the bottom
withdrawn.
lip.
The art
bottom lip.
ideal tended more and
Where's
more to
this?
become a conscience and a purpose in itself, an inward impulse for action and an outward goal.
Okay, yeah.
The artist's real greatness will depend at all times on his qualities as a representative.
Over there.
His true merit will arise from giving expression in ideal terms to his nation and to his
Let me
age. Insofar as he has been able to do this and the spirit of his country is reflected in his work, insofar as he has represented what is best therein and most enduring, he will have achieved greatness. Not that this is always or even often a conscious expression. It is unfair reading to search for deep thought in the
I
work of
don't
either
want to
painter or
continue to
poet.
use that cool.
Neither
I'm gonna use
art
this
offers the
dark.
best
It's
medium
like
to
a
convey the
pinch gray,
abstractions of
but
the
it's
mind,
more
since
green.
each has its own method of expression, independent of pure reason. But painter and poet, in the degree they attain greatness, express more than
Doing the
themselves.
inner part.
Arista, intent only to amuse,
I'm
reflects with playful wit
use,
and
I'm not
skepticism
gonna
the
use that
splendid luxury and
point,
joy
right?
of living in Renaissance court life. The care with which he chiseled each line proves that his real
Let me
seriousness
use
and
the
conscience
red that I
lay in
use
his
in the
artistic
face.
purpose. Without
Keep it in the
Arista's
same
vision,
family.
Paolo Veronese depicted a similar side in painting, though his Venetian birthright made him celebrate the glory of the Republic. Poet and painter alike expressed far more than either could know. If such a
See if
test
that
be applied
works.
to the artists of the Renaissance, each in turn will respond to it, just as the weakness of the later Bolognese as a school is that, beyond a certain technical merit, they meant and represented so little. But the noblest painters, Michelangelo and Raphael, Titian and Leonardo, in addition to possessing the solid grasp of technical mastery, reflected some aspect of their nation's life and civilization. In Michelangelo was realized the grandeur of Italy struggling vainly against Russian oppression. He expressed that which was highest in it, reflecting the loftiest side of its idealism mingled with deep pessimism in his survey of life. For, wrapped in austerity, he saw mankind in heroic terms of sadness.
Let me,
Raphael, on the other hand, found only beautiful sweetness everywhere. The tragedies of life failed to touch the young painter, who blotted from view all struggle and sorrow, and in spite of the misery which had befallen his nation, could still
Love
rejoice in the
Velasquez.
sensuous beauty of the world. There was another
I
side of the
study all those
Renaissance,
guys.
dependent neither on beauty nor heroic grandeur, yet sharing in both true qualities of its own. Titian, who painted the living man of action, the man of parts, susceptible alike to the appreciation of ideal beauty and heroic impulse, but guided withal by expediency,
Velasquez.
reflected this more practical aspect of
Velasquez
life.
and so on.
In his portraiture, he expressed the
Especially what John
statecraft
did
for
with a
which
limited
Italians
palette.
found opportunity beyond the Alps, since in Italy it was denied them, and Titian found even Venice too narrow for the scope of his art. But before
The beauty
Titian,
of
before
a lot of these
Raphael,
paintings from the
before
masses is,
Michelangelo,
if you look at
Leonardo
their work,
reflected the rationalism and
a
the
lot of these
mystery,
painters,
the subtlety and
they
the
use a
philosophical
limited palette.
speculation of
A
the
lot of
age.
their paintings,
To find in his work
it's
only
in
the
blues,
individual
reds,
cause of
and
genius
yellows.
would
You
be
don't
to mistake
really see
perhaps
too
its
much.
most important
But that's
side,
basically what
for the
everything is.
expression of his
It's
mind,
just different
both by
variation of
experience and
red,
its
but it's all
limitations,
red,
is typical of the spirit of
you
his
know?
time. The Italian Renaissance was reflected in him,
You
as
don't
rarely
really
a
need all
period
these
has been
different
expressed in
reds
the life work
or
of a
all
single
these
man.
different yellows.
He represented its union of practice and theory, of thought placed in the service of action. He summed up its different
One
aspects
cool
in his
red,
own
one
individuality.
warm red,
Intellectually, he represented its many-sidedness attained through
blue,
penetration
yellow,
of thought,
and a
and a
couple of
keenness of
earth tones.
observation, profiting from
That's what you
experience
need.
extended into every sphere. As an artist, he possessed a
I'm gonna
vigor
do
of
more yellow on the
imagination,
forehead.
from which sprang his power of creating beauty. But in spite of his practical nature, he remained a dreamer in an age which had in it more of stern reality than of golden dreams. His very limitations, his excess of individualism, his want of long-continued concentration, his lack of patriotism, his feeling of the superiority of art to nationality, are all characteristic of Renaissance Italy. The union in Leonardo of reality to mystery has often been shared by genius in other fields. His own peculiar greatness sprang from expressing in art the apparent contradiction of attaining the world of mystery through force of reality. Like Hamlet, it was the union of the real with the unreal which appealed to him, of the world as he saw it and the world as he imagined it to be. It was but another expression of the eternal ideal of truth and beauty. L.E. American Embassy, London, 1906. End of section 0.
Part 1 of the works of Leonardo. Begun at Florence, in the house of Piero di Braccio Martelli, on the 22nd day of March, 1508. And this is to be a collection without order, taken from many papers which I have copied here, hoping to arrange them later, each in its place, according to the various subjects treated. And I think that before I shall have finished this work, it will be necessary for me to repeat the same thing many times over. So, O reader, blame me not, because the subjects are many, and memory cannot retain them and say, this I will not write because I have already written it.
Try.
And if I did not wish to fall into this error, it would be necessary, every time that I wish to copy something, in order not to repeat myself, to read over all the preceding matter, all the more so since the intervals are long between one time of writing and another. His thirst after knowledge. Not louder does the tempestuous sea bellow when the north wind strikes its foaming waves between Scylla and Charybdis, nor Stromboli nor Mount Etna when the sulphurous flames, shattering and bursting open the great mountain with violence, hurl stones and earth through the air with the flame of
Holy shit.
nor when the waters patterns of Mount Etna
Is this
driving furiously before any obstacle in the way of its vehement fury. So I, urged by my great desire and longing to see the blending of strange and various shapes made by convening nature, wandered for some time among the dark rocks, and came to the entrance of a great cave, in front of which I
over
long
here,
stood in astonishment and ignorance of such a
we
thing.
need a little bit more of that blue.
I bent my
I'm
back
gonna
into an
use
arch and rested
what
my
blue
left
was I
hand on my
using
chin,
before?
and with my right hand shaded my downcast eyes and
Was it this
contracted eyebrows.
Yeah, that was it.
I bent down first on one side and then on the other
Let
to
me
see
just
whether
right
I could
here.
perceive anything, but the thick darkness rendered this impossible. And after having remained there some time, two things arose within me, fear and desire. Fear of the dark and threatening cave, desire to see whether there were anything marvelous within. I discover for man the origin of the first and perhaps of the second cause of his being. Leonardo's studies. Recognizing, as I do, that I cannot make use of subject matter which is useful and delightful, since my predecessors had exhausted the useful and necessary things, but rejected by them as being of little value. I shall place this despised and rejected merchandise, which remains with the exception of the written word, which is its mechanical.
Let me get this start right there.
Avoid studies, the result of which will die together with him who studied.
Yeah, this one's good.
Value of knowledge. The intellect will always profit by the acquisition of any knowledge whatsoever, for thus what is useless will be expelled from it, and what is fruitful will remain. It is impossible either to hate or to love a thing without first acquiring knowledge of it. Men of worth naturally desire knowledge. It is ordained that to the ambitious, who derive no satisfaction from the gifts of life and the beauty of the world, life shall be a cause of suffering, and they shall possess neither the profit nor the beauty of the world. On his compliments. I know that many will say that this work is useless, and these are they of whom Demetrius said recked no more of the breath which made the words proceed from their mouth than of the wind which proceeded from their body. Men who seek solely after riches and bodily satisfaction, men entirely denuded of that wisdom which is the food and verily the wealth of the soul, because insomuch as the soul is of greater value than the body, so much greater are the riches of the soul than those of the body. And often when I see one of these take his work in his hand, I wonder whether, like a monkey, he will not smell it and ask me if it is something to eat. On the vulgar, Demetrius used to say that there was no difference between the words and the voice of the unskilled ignorant, and the sounds and noises of a stomach full of superfluous wind. And it was not without reason that he said this, for he considered it to be indifferent whence the utterance of such men proceeded, whether from their mouth or their body, both being of the same substance and value. I do not consider that men of coarse and boorish habits and of slender parts deserve so fine an instrument, nor such a complicated mechanism as men of contemplation and high culture. They merely need a sack in which their food may be held and whence it may issue, since verily they cannot be considered otherwise than as vehicles for food, for they seem to me to have nothing in common with the human race save the shape and the voice. As far as the rest is concerned, they are lower than the beasts. Knowledge of the past and of the places of the earth is the ornament included of the mind of man. Knowledge is being good. Cornelius Celsus. Knowledge is the supreme good. The supreme evil is physical pain.
I'll do it again.
Composed of two separate parts,
I'll
the
do it
soul
2 more
and the
times.
body. The soul is the greater
2
of these
times.
two, the body the lesser.
I did that one.
Knowledge appertains to the greater part. The supreme evil belongs to the lesser and baser part. Knowledge is an
I
excellent
took this
thing
one a
for
little
the
too
mind,
far.
and
I
pain
should have
is
left
the
it
most
alone.
grievous thing for the body.
I went back and looked at the
Just as
video
the
and
supreme
And
a physical
there was
table,
a
so
point
is
in
wisdom
the
the
video
supreme good of the soul.
that it looked at just right.
That is to say of the wise man, and no
The thing is
other thing
overworking
can be
them.
compared with it. Life and wisdom.
Overworking them.
In the days of
This
learning,
is
seek to obtain that which shall compensate the
he's
loss of
struggling
thy
here.
days. And if thou understand
You can tell in the
that
green
old
she's
age is
struggling.
spent with wisdom, so conduct thyself in the days of thy youth, that
He's
sustenance
struggling
may
in
not
that
be
green.
lacking to thy old age.
He's struggling in that area.
Praise of knowledge.
He's struggling in
The
these
fame
areas.
of the rich man dies with him. The fame of his treasure.
There's got to be a little bit of vibration. Blue and
Far
red,
greater
it's
is the
cool
glory
and
of the
warm.
virtue of mortals than that of their riches. How many emperors and how many princes have lived and died, and no record of them remains? And they only sought to gain dominions and riches in order that their fame might be everlasting. How many of those who lived in scarcity of worldly goods in order to grow rich in virtue?
Right here.
And as far as virtue
This
exceeds
dark.
wealth, even in the
It's
same
coming
degree,
too
the
far out.
desire of the poor man proved more fruitful than
This
that
is
of the
better.
rich man. Dost thou not see that wealth
better
in
than
itself
that gray. I can
confers
get it
no
to
honor on him who amasses it, which shall last when he is dead, as does knowledge?
That's what that
Knowledge
is,
which
like a
shall
blue.
always bear witness, like a clarion to its creator, since knowledge
Bring it
is the
in.
daughter of its creator, and not the stepdaughter, like wealth. The world. Bountiful nature has provided that in all parts of the world you will find something to imitate. The beauty of life. Consider in the streets at nightfall the faces of men and women when it is bad weather. What grace and sweetness they manifest.
Yeah, that's a little too.
Just as iron, which is not used, grows rusty, and water putrefies and freezes in the cold, so the mind, of which no use is made, is spoilt. Fruitless study. Just as food eaten without appetite is a tedious nourishment, so does study without zeal damage the memory by not assimilating what it absorbs.
So true.
Truth was the only daughter of time. In praise of truth.
I mean, I'm so used to painting every day that I sometimes I shouldn't paint because I don't feel that well, and I just end up, not doing such a good job.
The humblest things they are exalted. There is no doubt that truth is to falsehood as light is to darkness, and so excellent a thing is truth that even when it touches humble and lowly matters, it still incomparably exceeds the uncertainty and falsehood in which great and elevated discourses are clothed. Because, even if falsehood be the fifth element of our minds, notwithstanding this, truth is the supreme nourishment of the higher intellects, though not of disorderly minds. But thou who feedest on dreams dost prefer the sophistry and subterfuges in matters of importance and uncertainty to what is certain and natural, though of lesser magnitude. Obstacles in the way of truth are finally punished. Versus humanists. I am well aware that, not being a literary man, the presumptuous will think that they have the right to blame me on the ground that I am not a man of letters. Vainglorious people, they know not that I could make answer as Marius did to the Roman people, and say, they who make a display that the labors of others will not allow me mine? They will say that, being unskilled in letters, I cannot find true expression for the